Last week, we heard Luke's telling of the resurrection story of Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and the other Mary going to the tomb, being told by men in glowing white that Jesus had been raised, and then proclaiming this news to the apostles, who all but dismissed their proclamation of the gospel as idle gossip. Peter, not really believing, but curious nonetheless, sets off for the tomb, finds it empty except for linen cloths in which Jesus had been wrapped, and returns home amazed. John's telling, leading up to today's gospel, is somewhat different. Mary Magdalene alone went to the tomb, but upon finding the stone rolled away, runs to tell Peter, the beloved disciple, the other apostles, the body has been stolen. Peter and the beloved disciple race to the tomb. Mary follows at a more sedate pace. Peter is perplexed by what he finds, rolled up linens and no one around. The beloved disciple is meanwhile overcome by belief and returns to his home, from which he apparently begins to preach the good news and bring the Johannine community into being. And Mary remains in the garden weeping, where she encounters the not quite fully resurrected Jesus and comes to believe because she has seen Jesus back from the dead. Mary then testifies this encounter to the apostles, but they don't believe her, as in Luke's telling, and lock themselves up in a room, afraid that they will be taken away and executed for sedition. So while Thomas gets a bad rap for not believing his fellow apostles, they also did not believe Mary. And even Mary did not know what to believe until she encountered the resurrected Jesus. Only the beloved disciple, the founder of the evangelist John's community, is portrayed as being a model for future generations. Only he believed without needing to see Jesus resurrected. And so when John has Jesus speak of those who did not see and yet still believed as being blessed, it was not simply the audience, but also their founder who is being referenced. All of the others, from Mary to Peter to Thomas, are portrayed as being in this category of those who needed to see to believe. Peter, more than even Thomas, is actually condemned the most. He saw the same empty tomb as the beloved disciple, and he heard the testimony of Mary, and yet he is still seen hiding in the upper room before a locked door when the resurrected Jesus appeared to him. And while he is excited and overjoyed by this encounter, even though Jesus has commissioned him to go and preach the gospel, he, together with the other disciples, is seen as still hiding a week later when Jesus appears specifically to Thomas. It is only in the centuries that follow that Thomas became the doubter, while Peter became the first pope. So what are we supposed to do with this? Well, I think it is instructive in how we become community together. When someone is trustworthy, we need to be willing to trust them, even when something they say may seem incredible. This does not mean that we are expected to trust one another without questioning, but it does mean that we need to have an openness to ideas that may challenge our preconceived notions, especially when those ideas are presented by those who have had knowledge and experiences that we could not or did not have. None of us have the ability to truly walk in one another's shoes. But we can listen to one another when we talk about our personal experiences and understand that just because these experiences are not our own does not mean that these experiences are not real. As Episcopalians, we are called to be a people of faith, but a faith informed by reason, to trust one another, but also to ask not only whether another's testimony makes sense from our own experiences, but also whether the person having them may have had specific experiences that would give them access to new knowledge that we do not have. As Christians, when faced with a challenge to our reality, we are called upon to follow the path of the beloved disciple and trust in God and one another, rather than demand, like Thomas, to do our own research, to experience that new reality firsthand, or like Peter, who even when faced with that new reality, continued to hide in the comfort of the old reality. Our world has been forever changed, and we need to live into that change. Alleluia.